What do you think? I know you touch on keto in here. What do you think about keto diet and how could someone go about doing it?
Yeah, well, keto definitely can be a good thing every once in a while. So I don't think that it's, let's say, that optimal all the time because it also has like some negative side effects if you do it chronically. Most of the benefits that you get have to do with, again, just more stable blood sugar levels, reduced appetite, reduced cravings, maybe more energy, and yeah, just more stable mood and things like that. Whereas the negative side effects can, if you let's say do it for weeks and months, then what eventually happens is this mild physiological insulin resistance. So that because you're not eating carbs, because you're not, you really producing that much insulin anymore, then the body's ability to produce that insulin also goes down a little bit, and you become slightly insulin resistant. So if you were to eat like a large dose of carbohydrates after being in keto for weeks, then your blood sugar would stay elevated a bit longer for a period of time because of that. You're not really producing the insulin to shuttle the blood sugar back into the cell. So that is no in the short term or in yeah like in the long term that's not like a big problem, but it is a problem if you're planning to eat carbs. So
Right.
like a more strategic approach would be to do this keto cyclically, so that on some days you eat low carb, on some other days you eat high carb, at least higher carb, so that you would still maintain this insulin sensitivity and metabolic flexibility as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that people really get caught up on, and like I'm keto for months and months and months, and I guess you're gonna be keto for the rest of your life and never have a carbohydrate.
Right.
Maybe it'll be okay, but why is important? And you say metabolic flexibility, so just basically being able to for your body to switch between burning carbohydrates and fats, right? um,
Yeah.
why is that going to be important besides just obviously what you said about possibly being insulin resistant? I mean, insulin sensitive, good thing, but insulin resistance, like we don't want that, and people hear insulin resistant, we think diabetics, for the most
Mhm.
part. And I think it's interesting
Yeah.
for somebody to look thin or in shape that's on keto for a long time. They can't imagine that they could actually make their body resist that insulin.
Mm. Yeah, well, it's not like pathological. It's not the same as diabetes and actual insulin resistance. So there's this insulin resistance that happens because, or let's say you're burning ketones and fats for fuel, then your majority of your energy demands, let's say the muscles use, will be covered with those fats and ketones,
Mm.
and the brain can use ketones up to like 70% of its energy requirements, but it does need some glucose as well. And on keto, you produce that glucose from like fats and amino acids. But if you do the carbs, then like the immediate response of the body is also to, let's say, the muscles become insulin resistant so that the brain could have access to the glucose. So it's just the muscles are basically covered. They got their energy requirements covered from the fats and ketones. And then they just say, okay, we become insulin resistant so that the brain could have it. So it's not like, insulin resistance per se. It's more of like a glucose sparing, so that the muscles are sparing the glucose for the brain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
sure.
one thing, you still need to, let's say, for optimal, you would still want to be like insulin sensitive as well. Like insulin is not only like a bad thing. Insulin is does promote storage of nutrients, but it also helps with like muscle growth and things. You need insulin for producing like thyroid hormones as well. So being on keto long term all the time can just lead to the down regulation of your metabolic rate and thyroid production, as well as like you may become a bit deficient in electrolytes. So if you're not spiking insulin, or your insulin levels are too low, then you're not able to, or you're, let's say, not insulin sensitive enough, then you're not able to shuttle like electrolytes and sodium and magnesium into the cells as well. So you become, let's say, chronically deficient in them. Even if you are eating enough, you're not producing enough insulin to, let's say, utilize them properly.
Yeah. So is there a point where we would want to spike our insulin levels? You remember back in the day, like they said you want to have like a high like gummy bears or something after your
Right.
workout to spike that insulin level. Is there anything from what you found that when we would want to actually on purpose trigger that insulin spike?
Yeah, well, I think the best time to do it, if you were to ever do it, then it would be, yeah, like after a training session, to replenish the muscle glycogen stores and also kickstart the repair processes by spiking insulin and mTOR. So yeah, you don't necessarily, have to have like a massive spike, or you don't need to eat a ton of carbohydrates, but yeah, like something that does elevate your blood sugar, or at least elevates the amino acid content in your bloodstream, would help to do this, or to kickstart the recovery process.
Okay, so what would something good for people to eat afterwards? After that, to increase that recovery process, what have you found to be, one of your go-tos?
Yeah, well, I personally, if I do this ketosis cyclically, so on my workout days, I usually have more carbohydrates, and on my rest days, I stay lower carb. And after my workout, then I'll usually eat something that has carbs, and some whole food carbs I prefer, like potatoes, maybe rice or something, some fruit as well, with some leaner piece of protein, like some fish, red meat, or chicken. Those are kind of good combos to add with the carbohydrates, because like if you spike your blood sugar, and you also have like the amino acids in there that you get from protein, then the like the mTOR activation is going to be much higher as a result of that as well, compared to just eating protein alone, or carbohydrates alone. So yeah, like in a post-workout scenario, protein plus carbs is the best kind of recovery meal.
Yeah, I like doing a white rice generally post workout. Depends on how much time I have. Sometimes it's white rice with some protein literally in it, and I'll kind of eat it like a little rice pudding, if you
Yeah,
will. People are like, that's disgusting. Like, well, I don't have much time, so if I've got the rice,
yeah.
and some protein in it, and I do that. But otherwise, yeah, I like doing some potatoes and sweet peppers and eggs, and maybe some red meat in there. That's generally
Mhm.
cooked from the day prior, like a grass fed, grass finished. It's a good combo, and I just like eating a lot, so I'll eat twice, maybe three times a day, but it's a big quantity of food just because I'm an inner fat kid. I think I
Yeah.
don't want to eat those meals.